Welcome to the Grow People podcast. That is Pastor Jason.
It is.
I am David Stein.
You are.
The discipleship pastor at Revolution Church. The purpose of the Grow People podcast is to help grow people. Lots of callbacks to previous podcasts today. This is not a retrospective, but in the last podcast, we talked about your visit to Utah. Mm-hmm. And in that visit to Utah, you were fascinated, and then we became fascinated by the Mormon Church. Had no idea about wards and temples and the structure of it, or the fact that the Mormons own many, if not all, of the ancestry websites.
Yes, they do. Yeah, family ancestry. That's a hard phrase to say.
It is.
Family ancestry.com.
Yes. So, and the reason they do that is so they know who's who.
So they know who's who, and then, like we said, so that you can know who's in your family line if you need to get baptized for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So a lot of research.
Well, the reason I bring that up is coincidentally, and many of you know my mom passed away a few weeks ago. When I went out to California, and my brother and I were going through all of the papers for the last 94 years. My mom was a prolific writer. Like, didn't stop writing from the time she was a child to the time she passed away.
Which is impressive.
It is. Yeah. Every diary, every journal.
Yeah.
I found a will that she wrote when she was 14. Now, when she was 14, it's 1944.
Yeah.
So it's World War II, and you didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
She wrote a will. She goes, okay, and this pair of shoes I give to my friend Betty.
Yeah. So I was going to say, does she give directions on what to do with her dolls and things?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow.
But I found stacks, probably 200 letters that she and my dad had written to each other. Wow. I did not read them. I do not want to read them.
Depends on how old.
Yeah.
Yeah. Teenager, maybe. Yeah.
There were just so many really cool things. And one of them, I found that in 2006, she had gone to a Mormon ward in Southern California in Orange County to get our family history. And so right after you and I had talked about that on the podcast.
She went and did it.
So there it was. Now, she had done this in January of 2006. I didn't get saved until September of 2006.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I don't know what to make of that timing, other than it was the same year.
Yeah.
But I found fascinating things.
Did she get actual information?
Oh, Oh, she got actual information.
Yeah.
And when you thumb through this, I mean, they do a great job. When you thumb through it and you see
actual documents,
Ellis Island stuff, census from 1920, just incredible documents. Turns out it is it is possible, not unlike your grandparents, that mine were cousins.
Really?
Yeah. Because so both the Steins and the Levins, who became the Goldbergs when my grandmother married my grandfather. Okay. So my mom was a Goldberg.
Gotcha.
But the family's name was Levin from the Levites all the way down. The Levins and the Steins lived in the same small town in Russia.
Wow.
Yeah, in Vitebsk. Now, I was told family lore is picture Fiddler on the Roof. So I am my entire life picturing Fiddler on the Roof. Okay, there's Tevye and there's the matchmaker and there's probably 75 people that live in this little village and they live in hovels. No, Vitebsk in 1916 had 100,000 people.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like they were living next door to each other, but they did come from the same town.
They did.
So I thought that was fascinating.
Well, and I don't know if I told you this, and we'll talk about this today on the pod, but the town in Ukraine, Uman, that's where the setting of Fiddler on the Roof occurred.
Wow.
Did I tell you that?
No.
Yeah, Slavic told me that.
No.
Yeah, it occurred in that town. That's the storyline.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And you almost went there.
We didn't visit it. Yeah.
Okay, so that was I think you just what? Not a cliffhanger. What's it called?
Preempted.
No. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. Pastor Jason just got back from Ukraine. Mm-hmm. So the other callback to a podcast was earlier this year. We had Pastor Jason's friend Slavik on. Mm-hmm. He is the president of a seminary in Western Ukraine.
Yeah, Lviv.
In Lviv, the far west, where generally there's not a lot of action in the war.
It's not on the front lines.
It is not on the front lines. But you went there specifically to see the seminary, mm-hmm. and then you left Ukraine after a week and went to Germany for our Exponential Church Planting Network meetings. So let's start with Ukraine. The pictures that you sent were very surprising. Mm-hmm. Again, we're so ignorant here in the West.
Yeah.
And we think Eastern Europe, it's going to look like Uman from Fiddler on the Roof.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you say ignorant, you're not saying we're dumb. We're just like, there's so much of the world that we just are unaware about.
Oh, we don't know what states border our own state for the most part.
Yeah, Slavik, who was on the podcast earlier this year, as Pastor David said, is a friend of mine in our church, and I'll definitely want him to come sometime, either on a weekend or something. We'll figure that out. But ironically, him and I actually went to the same seminary. We both went to Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary in Fort Worth, Texas, but at different times. And he's actually a little bit older than me, but I went before him because he was actually living in Russia for a while and got a degree there, but then came to the States and got his master's and then his doctorate. And we met at the Exponential Conference, which, if you're unfamiliar with that, the Exponential Conference is a church planting conference and network, really, or like that gets a bunch of church planting networks together. It's more of a movement and for the purpose of multiplication. And so we've been going to that and a part of that for better part of a decade. So I met him many years ago. Pastor Chad and I were there. We're sitting at a dinner and just struck up a conversation. And then it was like, oh gosh, we went to the same seminary. And so fast forward, our church, we actually support their seminary. It's called Ukraine Baptist Theological Seminary in Lviv, Ukraine. And so we'd been talking for a while, Slavik and I, about going and seeing what God was doing there, because we actually invest in what they call their Young Leaders Program, and we'll talk more about this, but investing in young leaders for the sake of multiplication. Mm-hmm. So we started investing in that as a church, and so him and I had talked about me coming to see it. Well, then there's this conference happening the Exponential Conference happening in Berlin, Germany, that he was speaking at and that we're a part of. So I was like, all right, I'll just go to Ukraine with you, like visit you, and then we'll go together to Germany. And so that's what we did. But obviously going to Ukraine, even though it's in the western part, Lviv, it's the reality. They are in war. One of the things that I learned about, they do not speak of the war as starting in 2022, because actually this started back in 2014. Mm-hmm. When Russia invaded Crimea and took it over, which was a part of Ukraine. What is happening now, they call it the full-scale war. So that was an interesting thing of like, this war hasn't been going on for almost 4 years now. It's been going on for 10, 11 years. Because that's when Russia attacked their country. So they would speak of it now as a full-scale war. And what they mean by full-scale war, it's not just in one part of the country. It's in the whole country. It's full-scale, mm-hmm. Now, the eastern side, where the border is between Ukraine and Russia, that is what they would call the front lines. Mm-hmm. And that's what I was referring to earlier. And that's where the on-the-ground fighting is happening. And now, on the western part, the central and western part, there's not on-the-ground fighting, but Russia will still, with drones and send missiles and bombs. So the rest of the country is always under the threat of that. Not a ground war, but an air war. And that's the part that was unnerving.
Yeah. Yeah. like if you had said to us, hey, I'm going to go to this seminary in Nigeria, I think we all would have been like, I don't, because that's where Christians are being slaughtered by the thousands.
Yeah, which you'd never hear on the media, sadly.
Ever. But, Western Ukraine, the seminary, it's in a city, but there was still this apprehension. What happened when you got there? Well, you got to Poland.
Yeah, that's the other thing that is like, and I talked to them about this, like, and I didn't come up with these phrases, but like, there's a phrase, like in business, there's hard cost and soft cost.
Mm-hmm.
Hard costs are just what you pay for things, but sometimes soft costs are things that you may not be paying for directly, but you're paying indirectly, like that you have cost for. I mean, you might be paying them directly, but they're just different. So when you think about a war, there's the hard cost of war, and that's actually like losing lives. The money that it takes to defend yourself. Those are hard costs. But in a war, there's also 1,000 different soft costs. And what I mean by that, when I was helping them, it was really cool conversations. Like, for example, you cannot fly into Ukraine anymore directly because Ukraine doesn't want any civilian aircraft in the air.
Yeah,
that then they have to defend that Russia could bomb. Because and again, I'm not saying anything I'm saying today. I'm not talking from a political perspective. I mean, there's all kinds of different political persuasions. I'm just talking about a Christian, what I saw there. It's very obvious that this is an evil war, that Russia started this. This is their war. And not only is it evil, but what they're doing is evil. They're bombing apartments. They're bombing hospitals. They're bombing churches. They're not just bombing. Yes, they're bombing electrical grids and, those kinds of things too, but they're not just bombing military installations. That's what makes it so evil. So when you go there, back to the soft costs. So one of the soft costs is like Lviv, where the seminary is, where Slavic lives. It has an international airport, and it's like 15 minutes from his house. So prior to the full-scale war, to leave the country, Slavic, take 2 hours, go to the airport, just like we do here in Atlanta, and get on a plane and leave. Well, you can't do that anymore because you can't fly out of that because Russia tries to bomb that airport. Now they're using the airport, for military operations. So now you have to fly out of Krakow, Poland, which driving is about 5 hours from Lviv.
Which, if you live in Canton or Pickens County, it could take 5 hours to get to Hartsfield.
It could, yes. But you also have to cross a border. And that's the unknown. Because when you cross the border, it's not like, because Ukraine is not a part of the EU. They're not a part of NATO. When you're crossing those borders, you have to be very careful. Because no men, 25 to 60 can leave the country. They're not allowed to.
Yeah, that was a point that I was fascinated by because, the last time we had a draft, it was Vietnam.
Yeah.
And it was 18 and up.
Yeah.
I don't know what the threshold was, but
it wasn't that high.
Yeah. So this is 20.
I think it was to 40.
25 to 60. And the reason it starts at 25 is...
Yeah, they don't want their 18 to 25-year-olds, they don't want them fighting in war because that's the future of their country. You know what I mean? And so they don't want to kill all the younger, males specifically. So they started at 25 and then they go older, all the way up to 60 because the thought is like, we're trying to perpetuate our country. Like we don't want to kill off the next generation, and so they start older and then kind of work their way down. So no males at that age are allowed to leave. Now Slavic I think he's early 50s, unless you have like government documentation. So Slavic, being the president of the seminary, if you have 3 kids as a man, you don't have to serve in the country, in the military. But if you don't have 3 children, you're in that age group and you don't have some type of military or some type of state documentation, like the lead pastor of a church doesn't have to serve because he's important, to the to the church. And Ukraine doesn't want to just obliterate, all their organizations trying to save themselves. So they make new laws all the time. Things change all the time. So anyway, when you're crossing the border, you like coming from Krakow and there's Polish border patrol people. So you have to go through that. Then you have to go through Ukrainian border control people. And that was one thing Slavic said, when you're going through the border, you have no along how it's going to take. You just, there's no way to know. Like when they came to pick me up, it took them 5 hours just to cross the border.
Wow.
So then it took a 10-hour. So 5 hours of driving, 5 hours sitting still at the border. So it took them 10 hours to come pick me up the day before they picked me up. And then when we got through, thank God, and we were all praying, it only took us an hour to get through the border. So 5 hours of driving, 1 hour at the border. So it took us 6 hours. But what I'm saying as soft cost is it took Slavic 2 days. One day to come to Poland, stay the night, the other day to pick me up and go back to Ukraine. So what would have taken him 2 hours now takes 2 days.
Yeah.
And that's a soft cost of the war that no one thinks about. So like Slavic, who does a lot of international travel, and he's actually, when we left Germany together, he's in the States. He'll actually be here in a couple of weeks.
Oh, cool.
But that's a cost that he has to pay that is a huge inconvenience to his life.
My goodness, yes, especially with the amount of international travel he does.
Yes. And so now, again, that's not as bad as dying in the war, which is a hard cost. But you just think about our lives as Americans. If it took you, what used to take you 2 hours to go to the airport now takes you 2 days, that's an unbelievable inconvenience. And that's just one of many, of those kinds of things. Every day across the entire country, I don't know if I told you this, but every day at 9 o'clock in the morning, they have a moment of silence. And that doesn't matter if you're driving a car. Like there was times where I was in a restaurant eating breakfast with him. We were in the car. You stop. So the entire country at 9 a.m. in the morning stops. If you're in traffic, you stop. A lot of people will get out of their cars, stand up, and it's just for a minute. If you're in a restaurant, like everybody stood up and just like bowed their head, and it might be directed, but you pray for, remember all the fallen soldiers, pray for the country. And then after that minute, you get in your car or start your car back up and you go, But the day before I got there, and I stay up on the news pretty well. I feel like most of the attacks, again, the front lines is on the eastern part, what they would call the Donbas region, which a lot of that Russia actually controls now and occupies. But then Kyiv, the capital, is in the center of the country, and that's where a lot of the attacks occur in the air. Because again, Russia just is evil. They'll attack, now that it's getting winter, they'll attack their power grid so that they don't have heat. They don't have electricity. But 2 days before I got there in Lviv, they had the worst attack in Lviv since the beginning of the war. Like 2 days before I got there. So when Slavic picks me up in Ukraine, in Poland, he's like, putting my luggage into the back of his car. He was like, have you watched the news? I said, no. He's like, yeah, we just had the worst attack in Lviv since the beginning of the war. He just says it like nonchalantly.
Very matter of fact. When he was here and talking about the war, it's just everyday life.
It's just their life. And again, this has been going on since 2014 in the country, but not full scale now for 3 years. I think they're about to enter their 4th year. And that was one of the things that was probably the most surprising to me getting there is like, traveling from Poland to Ukraine and going through the border, that was all very surreal because, you feel, even if you haven't done anything wrong, you feel like, please don't arrest me, because like you're dealing with all these agents.
And you got through in an hour.
Yeah, in an hour, which.
You're like, Benjamin Franklin says that I can come through.
Exactly. That's where you're like, I'm just going to, and he said, just play dumb. Don't act, just act like if they ask any questions, just give them your passport, act like you don't know what's going on, But he has to give them all this extra paperwork because he's a male in his 50s, Because the other thing is like, if they get you on the street and they see that you don't have papers, like clearance and you're in that age group, you will be taken right then.
Wow.
Like they would have taken him out of his car and left us there. And then he goes and is in the military. Like,
so for some reason he forgot his papers.
Yes. They could just pick him up and take him.
Whoa.
Like even in the city, like, if you're, like one of the guys that works at the seminary, he's single, he's 30. He is now the lead pastor of the church plant that's there. Again, so he has clearance to not serve. But he was picked up just walking on the street, and they were about to just take him, like just on his way to work. And so now he doesn't walk the street anymore. He takes a cab.
This is mind blowing.
It's mind blowing.
And again, we live in a Western society where we don't think about this.
We don't, and that's the thing, that there's a lot of things wrong with our country, but it's not just that America is the greatest country on earth. I think it is. It's bigger than that. It's Western civilization. And Western civilization in and of itself, again, there's been wrong things done, no doubt. So this isn't like a blanket statement of like just baptizing the whole Western civilization. However, when you see it this is a fight of ideologies, like Russia and Soviet and communism, Eastern versus Western civilization. Like Ukrainians, the best way I can explain Ukrainians, and there's this misnomer. People are like, well, they used to be a part of Russia. Actually, no. Ukraine has a longer history than Russia does. Russia used to be a part of Ukraine. And so Ukraine actually has more legitimacy to their own people and their own land than Russia does. And that's one of the misnomers you hear. But Ukrainians are just like freedom-loving, like the best way I can, like freedom-loving Southerners of America. Like just, I use the term redneck because that's my family. I kind of make fun of myself. But they just love freedom, and they want to be free, and that's why they're fighting. And it's a fight against Western civilization, because if Ukraine goes down, Russia will not stop. If they overtake Ukraine, then they'll just keep going, and because that's their mentality. And so that's why I think it is a worthy fight to help Ukraine. I think it's a worthy fight for our country to help Ukraine. Not only that, but we made a deal with them in the 90s when the Soviet Union fell. Our president, Bill Clinton at the time, and Gorbachev, right, that was part of the Soviet Union. Like Ukraine had all the nuclear weapons, had the nuclear arsenal of the Soviet Union at that time. We made a deal that if they would give them up, that we would protect them and that Russia wouldn't attack them. Well, obviously Russia didn't keep their end of the agreement. Now they're wondering, are we going to keep our end of the agreement? Because if they couldn't really, the only reason why they gave them up in the 90s is they didn't feel like they were just this fledgling new nation post-Soviet Union. They didn't really know how to handle them. So that's why they gave them back to the Soviet Union, now Russia. But we made a commitment, to defend them. And so I think we should honor that. But it's a defense of Western civilization, and again, people have all kinds of political opinions. That's not the point. But what you see there, back to what your statement was, they just want to be free. They don't want to live under communist rule. And I don't blame them, because it's horrible. And Lviv itself, before it was a part of the Soviet Union, it was a part of Poland. So Lviv itself is a very beautiful city. It has mostly Polish architecture. Poland is Kuba, who's on our staff, is Polish. Like we spent a night in Krakow, beautiful city. I mean, I'm talking beautiful. Like that is a very cool place. Well, Lviv is very much like that because it used to be under the Polish Empire, prior to the Soviet Union. So they're a country that have been dealing with this for over 1,000 years, being occupied, not occupied, trying to be free. So there's a long history there. And the other thing that you won't hear on the news is a very, very strong Christian influence. Now, some of that is the Orthodox Church, the Eastern Orthodox Church. Some of it is Catholic, They actually have Roman Catholic, then they have Greek Catholic. They have like two versions of Catholic. And then then there's quite a few Baptist churches there. So theologically and historically, there's a big Christian influence there. But all that to say, I think we were originally talking about how when I got to Lviv, I was surprised by just how normal things felt. Like they go about their life. They're getting married, they're having kids, they're going to school, they're going to work. And then they'll show you, oh yeah, Russia bombed that building. And like I took a picture of one that was about half a mile from the seminary. There was a very prominent Ukrainian family that was just asleep in this upper floor of I say apartment, but it's not what we think of apartment. Think of like more like a brownstone in New York, that kind of thing. And they just bombed the top of it because of this prominent Ukrainian family was there.
Wow.
And it was sad because the father lived, but his wife and 3 daughters all died. And there's just a bombed out building right there,
It's a hard concept for us to understand. First of all, the news doesn't do a great job
not
covering
at all.
it. And then, we have from Hollywood, just movies, and we see what war kind of looks like.
Yeah.
Very few war movies depict actually what it feels like.
And nothing can depict what it feels like.
Yeah, but the tension that you felt in Ukraine. Now, we experienced that on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
You can feel the tension.
Yeah.
You can feel the Muslim, Christian, Jewish tension going on there. Different than the tension of knowing that missiles are aimed at you.
Yeah, and when you and I went to Israel in 2019, and I think I told you this the other day, there was always the threat of Hamas launching rockets into Israel.
Yeah.
And thankfully, when we were there, it was never where we were. And then there's the northern, next to Lebanon, there's always that, which happened as well. The difference between Israel is the superior power, but you understand why they have to be.
Yes.
Because people are launching rockets at them, and we helped them, and I think we should help them. The difference in this is Russia is the superior power, and now you have Ukraine, who is the inferior one, trying to defeat Russia. And they know they can't defeat them, like take them on as a country, because they're the second most prolific nuclear power on the planet. It's us than them, with a huge military. So they know they can't defeat them as a country. They're just trying to defend their homeland. And sadly, that's the thing that's sad. Like, Russia has lost way more than Ukraine as far as people. Like, they've lost over 1 million soldiers, to where Ukraine has lost not quite 100,000. Now, they have a couple 100,000 that have been injured, but they haven't died. But, those that have died, less than 100,000.
So 55,000 were killed in Vietnam, 55,000 Americans. Now, at the Battle of Gettysburg, 50,000 died in that 3-day battle in 1863. Now we're talking 100,000 Ukrainians, 1 million
over
Russians.
1 million Russians. Yeah.
These are staggering numbers.
Staggering. Like, and that's the part that I don't think people understand, like what's happening there. Because Russia thought they were just going to roll in and take over the country in 3 days and then institute their version of a government. And that didn't happen. And Ukraine is literally fighting for their lives. And they have now developed some of the foremost drone technology on the planet because they're really smart. And that's really what's keeping them alive is because, like, again, when I was there, they bombed Kyiv, which again is about 7 hours from where I was. And Russia launched, I think, about 100 drones and bombs, and Kyiv intercepted, or the Ukraine intercepted like 90 of them, but like 10 got through, And again, they're bombing apartment complexes and hospitals. So Ukraine's doing an unbelievable job defending themselves in that regard. But yeah, it's staggering to think about, like, it's not just evil because of what's happening to Ukrainians. It's evil because of what's happening to Russians. All these people fighting this senseless war.
Yeah.
And And what's really sad is Putin and the Russian Orthodox Church has framed this as a Christian war. Like they're doing it because they're Christians. And there's a lot of people that have said like, well, yeah, Ukraine is corrupt and all that kind of stuff. And I actually had that conversation with several Ukrainians, and they would agree, yes, there is corruption in Ukraine, but then they would say, but this one caveat. He said, but you have to remember, we were a part of the Soviet Union for decades. And so the corruption that is still here is left over from the Soviet influence that people are still in power here. Like what happened in 2014, the Ukrainian president was very pro-Russia. And so that's why Putin invaded Crimea, because he knew he had basically a puppet there that wouldn't fight back. And he didn't. He let them invade. Well, then the people rose up and they had what they now call the Day of Dignity. The Revolution of Dignity, where they marched on the Capitol in Kyiv, and because they didn't want that president giving their country back to Russia. So they were just marching peacefully, which again, like we believe we have the right to a peaceful protest. Well, then Russian snipers came in and just started shooting everybody in the crowd. Well, then that started a revolution in 2014. And then, shocker, the president of Ukraine fled to Russia. So then that's when all of this started. So that I say all that to say they just want peace like we want peace. They want Russia to leave their country alone. And yes, they would love to be a part of the EU and NATO, but the reason being because they way more align with Western civilization. They do not want to be Soviet Union now. They do not want to be Russian. They want to be their own independent country. And that's when you look at it and you're like, well, that's all we wanted as a country. And we succeeded. And that's why, again, it's a fight for not only Western civilization, but freedom of religion. And that's what's so, with the Russian propaganda that comes, and I don't think Americans understand how much Russians hate us too. Like in their Russian propaganda, they talk about dropping nuclear bombs on us all the time. Like this is not someone you can negotiate with.
No,
it's not a country you can negotiate with. And I hope our president, I think he's beginning to understand that. Hope that we do more to help sanction them, and because I just think that it's a fight for Western civilization. Regardless of all that,
and I hope, and I do have some questions. I'll ask.
Please.
Yeah. And I hope that we are still in a mindset of deterrence.
Yes.
Because once deterrence ends,
for those of you that are not familiar with what he said.
If you're not from, do you know how many people from Philadelphia we have in our church that have come out of the woodwork to say, "Oh man,
they feel at home
when you said bury."
Yeah, So, I haven't heard you say that word. What did you say?
Deterrent.
Deterrence.
Yeah. I don't even. Yeah. Now
deterrence
is it even a word now?
Yeah.
Because I think I mentioned this in the sermon a couple of weeks ago that over the past year and a half, all I have done is watch documentaries.
Yeah.
And I've become quite the expert on nuclear war.
Yeah.
So,
Chernobyl's in Ukraine.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a nuclear war is going to last 22 minutes. We have 6 minutes to decide at the launch. We will detect the launch in nanoseconds from North Korea or Russia.
Yeah.
We have 6 minutes to decide what to do.
Yeah.
That's it. And if there is full-scale nuclear war, the end of the world is 22 minutes.
Yeah. You know what's crazy? I didn't tell you this since you watched the whole Chernobyl documentary and you liked it so much, which I heard that in your message, which is, I was thinking about this. Here's what's so crazy. That's in northern Ukraine. And it's at the top, northern by Belarus. And then there's a river that runs through central Ukraine. Well, when Russia invaded, this is how crazy their mindset was. They went to Chernobyl and then they started digging ditches, like to fight there in Chernobyl, that region. Well, when they did that, they disrupt all the radiation. And then a lot of Russian soldiers have gotten radiation poisoning from Chernobyl because they didn't think, we shouldn't go dig up the dirt there.
Yeah.
Like it was keeping it down. So now there's been radiation pollution caused by Russia coming in. So it's just stuff like, again, another cost.
Another soft cost.
Another cost of like, there's so much that's going on there that's just, we don't ever hear about. And, it's affecting so many lives.
I'm not an expert in nuclear war. I've seen some YouTube documentaries.
You're at least interested in it.
Yes.
The term expert.
Yes. Yeah. No news agency has called me for my expert opinion on something. Okay. Questions. And I want to start out with you, Pastor Jason, are not prone to hyperbole. And that's just not your nature. I mean, I will say, okay, this is the best pizza I ever had.
Yes, you are prone to it.
I am prone.
It's the best event we ever did. Yeah.
Well, I think every event we do is the best event we ever did. Baptisms this past weekend.
That was one of the best.
That was super cool. Yeah. Exactly 100. I think it was exactly 100 baptisms.
I think so. Yeah.
You said to us when you came back from Ukraine, and I wrote this down, so I just want to get this correct. One of the best missional investments our church can do.
Yes.
So let's talk about this seminary, because it wasn't just going to see your friend Slavic.
No.
It was going to lay eyes on where Revolution Church is investing in the next generation of pastors.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about, the last 30 minutes or so, kind of the geopolitical things that are going on in Ukraine and the war there, and which is important. But the main reason of going is to see what God was doing there. Because even in the midst of this full-scale war, God is working as God does. And to me, that was the thing, yes, that struck me is, this school, their enrollment is right about 2,000 students. And those of you that are givers here and come to our giver dinners, we'll actually show a video at our giver dinners, which we will probably show in church as well. So if you haven't signed up for the giving dinners, if you were invited, make sure you sign up. You'll see some of the seminary, and you'll see some of the students. That's why I was saying that. But this school, even with an enrollment of about 2,000, it's very small, like on this little city block. But they have done an unbelievable job of, like, I was blown away by how nice it is, very modern, and they just started building it. They built a lot of it in this war because they had to build a bomb shelter, which is a parking garage, and then they're building a dorm on top of it. But the school is not very big, square footage wise, but to see what they're doing with this and how they turn it over, because they have like different cohorts of students that will come in. So a cohort of about 40 students will come to the school, I think 3 times a year, 3 or 4 times a year. They'll be on campus for that week. And so they'll have different cohorts that are there. So when I was there, I actually taught, again, this group of young leaders. So I was a seminary professor for the week, which was a lot of fun. Having to translate, that was a whole nother thing, which is it's hard as a teacher to do. Because for me, again, I have to talk in order to think. Like right now, you couldn't do what I'm doing.
And you didn't have to do that in Nairobi. There was
no. I got to speak in English in Nairobi, and so I had to put 3 lesson plans together, for this young leader cohort, which was fun. It was a lot of fun because I love school and I love teaching, and just with these young 18 to 24-year-olds, it was amazing. It was like speaking to our young adults, So you get to, I was there with that cohort, and then they had another I was there for 6 days, and then when we left, there was more cohorts coming in, and you just see how they turn over how they utilize this space. So it's not like it's not like a group of students going to school every day for a semester. They're there for a week, then a new group is there for a week, and then a new group. And then they have multiple levels. They have this young leader program, then they have a certificate program, then they have a bachelor's program, then they have a master's program, and then they have a small doctorate program. So you see that scale. Not only that, they have a church plant that meets at the school, and I got to preach at the church plant, which was awesome. Journey Church Lviv.
Is it? I mean, you talked about this in sermons many times, how you couldn't hear growing up. You had a lot of trouble talking. And here we are in 2025. You have preached in Jerusalem, on the Sea of Galilee, Nairobi, now Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big God.
It's wild.
That's a big God.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about it quite like that, so I'm kind of stunned. Yeah, no, I have this reoccurring thought, and I don't know if I've ever shared this at church. I've shared it, with people. I feel like, deja vu, like where you just like that. I feel like I've been here before.
Right, deja vu all over again.
Yeah, exactly.
Casey Stengel.
Yeah.
Yogi Berra.
I have this it's not really deja vu, you know what I mean? But I have this recurring thought so I don't know what to say. I say deja vu because whether it's that or not, I don't know. But I have this recurring, like, I'm in a place like this, teaching these students at a seminary in Ukraine. And my reoccurring thought is, how did I get here? Like, how am I here right now?
Yeah.
And it's like this out of body experience of like who I am, this, redneck guy who couldn't speak from East Texas. And now I'm teaching in Lviv, Ukraine. How did I get here?
Yeah.
And it happens to me regularly in Revolution as well. Like here, I'm in Canton, Georgia. I'm in Jasper.
But God.
Yeah. How did I get here? Like, I'm not executing some master plan. Like, I legit don't know how I got here.
Yeah. And let me just tell everybody, you are not the pastor that is seeking this stuff out.
No,
at all. This is not hey, I want to build this platform and I got these books and no, that's not you at all.
No. And thank you for saying that. Because it's like saying I'm the most humble man alive. You know what I mean? Like, which that's in the Bible. That's a joke. Like Moses wrote it, but he didn't write it. Moses wrote the first 5 books of the Bible, but at the very end it says he was the most humble man alive. We're pretty sure he didn't write that one. That was written after he died by probably Joshua. So that's a joke. But no, I'm glad you said that because it feels weird to say it for myself. But yeah, I'm not promoting something. I'm not, like I said, I didn't say it the last time I preached 2 weeks ago. I didn't say it on Sunday, but I said it on Thursday and I forgot to say it on Sunday. But I'm just a nobody telling everybody about somebody.
Oh, that was and I even texted you and you said, I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, that wasn't planned. And I heard somebody say that. I heard a preacher say that one time years ago. But to me, that's the amazing part. And I don't ever want to lose that feeling. So this reoccurring feeling that I'm talking about that I have, I don't ever want to lose it. Mm-hmm. I don't ever want to lose the sense of like, I have no idea how I got here. But God, like, I don't know. Like, I can't tell you how. So therefore I can't say, like young leaders out there, I can't say, do this, this, and this.
Yeah. Yeah. This guy does not have a publicist, an agent.
Yeah. Other than just, I don't even have like a person. I mean, I have an assistant, but I share her. Like, I don't even have like a executive assistant that helps me do all. I book my own travel, like I do my own stuff, and I don't say that arrogantly either. But my point is, like, I'm overwhelmed by that fact. Like, all I can tell, just be faithful. Like, trust God and be faithful. Like, that's all I know. And to see that God not only is using me as a person to do that, but our church as well. Like how God is taking our church and giving our church influence around the world is unbelievable to me.
Yeah, one of our new friends gave me a devotional that breaks down a Greek word every single day for 365 days.
Yeah.
And the first one was on October 20th, and it was Matthew 25:29. And that's exactly what it's talking about. Faithful in the little things, and he will bring abundance. And the Greek word in abundance, and I never thought of this before. God isn't just abundant. He's super abundant. Mm-hmm. He would never just be abundant.
Yeah.
he would be abundant beyond what we could think. Yeah. So this feeling of how
imagine,
So this feeling of how did I get here is simply part of that faithfulness in the little things and God bringing this super abundance that you never would have thought of.
No, and that's the only reason why I was comfortable enough going to Ukraine. It's like, all right, Lord, I feel like you wanted me to do this, but I'm not going to lie. And I told this to Lindsay about a week before I was left, and I told you this too. I got super anxious, and I'm not like that. I'm not an anxious person by my disposition, and not because I'm so mature. I just don't. It's not how my mind, because anxiousness isn't like necessarily a sin. It could just be the way you're wired, you know. And I'm not like that. But I got super anxious and super fearful about this because I'm going into a country that's in a war. But it wasn't that I was anxious about dying myself, because I'm like I know Jesus, and I look forward to, like Paul said, I'm looking forward to that. You know, the thing that I was anxious about though is my responsibilities here, my responsibility to my wife and kids, my family, my responsibility to this church. And to steward well what God has given this church. That's where I was wrestling. Was like, Lord, was this a dumb idea to go? Like, am I like, if I go and I die, am I letting down my responsibilities here? That's what I was wrestling with. And obviously I ultimately went because I felt like, Lord, you wouldn't have lined this up, you know. So I feel like this is me trying to steward well the influence you've given our church.
Yeah. How does that even happen? You meet Slavic. Wasn't it in a Uber or a cab or?
No, it was in a restaurant in Orlando, Florida.
Yeah.
Sitting across the table from him.
And a year and a half later, you're in Lviv preaching at a church plant out of this seminary.
Yes.
So let's talk about this investment that will have generational impact.
Yeah, the thing that Slava, and he said it when he was on here, but I know we had some mic issues when he was here, and so you may not have heard it. But the thing that Slavic prays for, and I've heard him say this before, but then hearing him saying it in the country was amazing. He is praying for the transformation of his nation, where people love God and obey the law. Like that's what he wants for his country. And what's interesting, like, for us, you're like, obey the law part. Well, again, you have to remember they're in a country that was Soviet Union that has wrestled with freedom and corruption because of that influence. And so not only does he want his country to love God, but he wants them to obey the law, to follow God in obedience, which lines perfectly with our mission of, you know, grow gospel relationships, obedience works. And so to know that my friend, is leading that and to see what he's doing. I don't know of somebody that's doing what he's doing on a level that he's doing it. Because he's not just leading a seminary with 2,000 students. We have those here.
Prior to the war, it was just a couple hundred students.
Yes, they have grown dramatically. And also grown in women coming to the school because, again, a lot of their young men are fighting. And so a lot of opportunities that we have there. So not only are they teaching, but they also started about 20 what they call we care centers all over the country, in even eastern part, where these are networks of church. Like they'll work either with a church or plant a church. Basically, call it an outreach center. You know, where they're doing humanitarian aid, feeding people, clothing them, and sharing the gospel. And networking churches together. So they have 20 we care centers over the whole country that are ministering to thousands of people.
That's incredible.
Yes. And then they're planting churches out of these we care centers. Like we were going to go meet in Uman, in the city where we're talking about, which you obviously knew this. I didn't. But Uman is south of Kyiv, the capital. And Uman was outside of Jerusalem, was like the highest concentration of Jewish people in Europe before the World War II. And it is a place that, it's not a holy place, I don't think, but it's just a very influential place in Jewish culture where they just had Rosh Hashanah before I got there. And like Jews from all over the world travel to that place because it's a very historical place for them too, you know, because they had settled there. So we were going to go to this city. We were leaving there on a Friday. We got about halfway there. Then Slavic got word that his mother-in-law passed away, which wasn't a big surprise because she'd been sick. So then we had to turn around and go back. I was very nervous about traveling there because, again, it was an hour south. I didn't even tell Lindsay that I was doing it because I didn't want her to worry. Didn't tell our board. I just kept them up to date that I was safe. So I was relieved that we didn't go there, but we were going to go meet church planters. Because again, this school, out of this one school, they're not only training up leaders, they have these We Care centers all over the country, then they're planting churches. Because when the full-scale war started, about 6 million people left the country, and they're only a country of 30 million. So a fifth of their country fled. Well, a lot of them were pastors with families. So now they have this void of pastors. And so, again, they're trying to raise up pastors, and they're trying to plant new churches. And they're very involved in all of that. And they just started a new program of training up counselors because they know they're going to need counselors dealing with the trauma of all of this. So that's when I texted y'all just to see what I don't know of a seminary that's not only training people, but they have outreach centers like this. Then they're planting churches like this. So you look at all that, and you're like, my gosh, man, I don't know how. I mean, all of this in the middle of a war. And so that's what was shocking is like they are taking kingdom ground in the midst of this evil war. And that's why it was like, I don't know if I've seen a better investment of our money. It's not our money, but the church. I don't know if I've seen a better kingdom investment that's going to go to affect literally the transformation of a nation.
Yeah.
Where they love God and obey the law. So that's why I was just struck by seeing all of that and seeing what they do.
And it is important that our lead pastor has eyes on these things. You started going to Kenya before we made the big investment into Northwest Kenya. And now 6 Revolution churches, I don't know how many churches have been planted out of those churches.
Yeah.
And thousands and thousands of Kenyans are coming to the Lord each year. So you think about the global investment from Canton, Georgia, and Jasper, Georgia. To me, that's wild.
It's wild. Yeah, we got a church plant in Scotland and ministry there, and then here in the States. I'll tell you and then again we left Ukraine, and then I went to the Exponential Europe conference and met. I met the leader of all of Exponential Europe. He actually lives in Norway. And we've been partnering with Exponential for a while now and supporting them. And now we're going to start supporting Exponential Europe. So I met the leader of this whole movement in all of Europe who lives in Norway. His name's Oyvind. He'll actually be here in a couple weeks. And me and Leonce, who spoke at our men's conference, are going to meet with him. So he's the leader of all of Europe, and now we're starting to work with him to plant, or them, he's the leader of it, but planting churches in all of Europe, and so in Romania and Norway and Germany. And again, you just see like what God is doing. But the thing that I was struck with the most between both of those experiences, and I want to say this to our church, is every single one of them, and I'm talking like, I talked to leaders from Ukraine, Romania, Norway, Germany, France. They all said the same thing to me. How much the church in America funds the mission of God in the world. And what they said was, if the American church is not generous, nothing happens in the world.
Wow.
So you hear that. Now, granted, they all wanted to talk to me.
Yeah.
They all want me to, I say me, I'm just there on behalf of our church. They all want to meet and like, hey, can you fund what we're doing? And some of them will say yes to, some of them will say no to, just because we can't say yes to everybody. It has to be strategic in what we're trying. Again, we invest in UBTS. We'll invest in Exponential Europe for sure. But I want to say to our church, at the University of Texas, where I went to undergrad, they have a phrase that says what starts here changes the world. Mm-hmm. And University of Texas is, again, whether you like them or not, it's a great university. It's a great research university. And that's true. There's some things that are happening there that affect the whole world. But I think about that phrase, and I want our church to know what's happening here is changing the world. Because churches and ministries all over the world rely on our generosity to enable them to do what they do. Like, for example, UBTS, the seminary, 90% of their budget, 90% comes from fundraising outside. Like they're not, because Ukrainians don't have the money to pay for all the programs. You know what I mean? So 90% of their funding comes from, and they actually have a organization here in America because the banking system in Ukraine is not that great. So it's a nonprofit here in America that you can give to, then gets money to them. Much like how Serve works here. Like they're housed here, then they send money to Kenya and Jordan and everywhere else. But I just want our church to know, and I'll talk about this at our giving dinners coming up. That's why us being a generous church matters. It's not just to fund what God's doing here at Revolution. It's to fund what God's doing here and through Revolution to our partners throughout the world. Because if we don't give, they don't do what they do.
And if you didn't know this, and obviously every year after audits, we post our financials.
Yeah, we just did it for 24.
10% of everything that comes into the church is earmarked for missions.
Yeah, it goes out.
Yeah, and that is a conviction that you had when you got here. And do I remember the story correctly? You asked the board.
Yeah, I had been here for like 3 or 4 months, and I was preaching a sermon on tithing. And I'm brand new. This is 2010. Brand new to this place. And I talked about tithing, how you just have to trust God. And it's the first 10. You have to give 10 away. And then a guy in our church who's a friend of mine, he doesn't go to our church anymore because he moved to Florida, but very generous guy. He came up to me afterwards. He's like, hey, I just had this thought. Like, you're talking about how we are supposed to tithe. What about the church? Does the church do that? And I got like, and I had wanted to move the church to being more generous. Well, in between the gatherings, I looked and I figured it up. I'm like, we're actually spending like 3% on missions outside the church. And so he challenged me. And so I got on a quick phone call with our board or text. I don't remember what I did exactly. I said, hey guys, I would like to stand up at this next gathering and say, from now on, we're going to give 10%. We were only doing 3. Now we're going to do 10. I would like to stand up and say that because I'm going to ask them to do it. We need to do it. And of course the board was like, yeah, let's do it. So I stood up at the next gathering. Like we just made a decision right there that Sunday when we were at the conference center. And I had been here like 3 or 4 months. And we made that decision. But here's what's amazing. Ever since we made that decision, every year that I've been here, 15 years, we've been over budget in our giving every year. Like whatever we set our budget, because we set our budget.
Over budget, not meaning we spent too much.
No.
Yeah.
We brought in more than what we budgeted.
Right.
Because how we work, simple math. If we brought in $1 million, which you guys are generous, we bring in more than that. But if we brought in $1 million this year in 25, what we would do for next year is we would set our budget at 90% of that. So we'd set our budget next year at $900,000 because we don't want to presume on the.
Sure.
So we budget on 90% of what is brought in the previous year. So that's how we run our church for a long time. So what I'm getting at is for 15 years, whatever we set our budget at, giving has exceeded that.
Even in 2020.
Even in massively in 2020, because we didn't have a lot of expenses.
No.
Because we cut things down. So for 15 years, we have been over budget in our giving, not over budget in our spending. So whatever our budget is, we've exceeded that in giving. And that's just been a product of, I think we said, God, we're going to trust you and take a nap, as we say. We're going to trust you. We're going to be a generous church. And therefore God has been generous to us. And that's what I wanted our church to know. And again, I'll talk more about this at the giving dinners, but I just feel, I have always felt an incredible amount of stewardship, and our board as well, to this church. For those who give to this church, like we try to steward our finances really, really well. Again, we try to budget well. We try to spend well. So I've always felt a stewardship to that. Now what I'm saying is I feel a stewardship to the global church, not just the local church. Yeah. I feel a stewardship now to what God is doing in the world because they need our generosity. And so it makes me want to steward what we do here even better for not just the sake of our church, but for the sake of the church.
And when you have shared things like this, and I'm very cognizant that this is my church.
Yeah.
This is where I go to church. I was going to this church before I was a pastor.
Yeah.
This is where I go to church.
Yeah.
This is where I tithe. So I'm very cognizant of the fact that my tithe is not related to my employment.
No.
Now, everybody on our staff must tithe.
It's a requirement.
It is. So to sit in a seat on a Thursday night or a Sunday, knowing that, hey, this isn't just, hey, it comes out of my bank account twice a month. No, this is going to the furthering of the gospel.
Yes.
In the world.
In the world.
In places that the gospel doesn't go.
Yeah.
The gospel isn't going to go to the darkness of war in Ukraine. The gospel isn't going to go to the darkness of northwest Kenya where there's nothing. The gospel certainly isn't going to go to Scotland in the darkness of less than 2% Christian unless the Western church is generous.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like there's again, in the same way I'm talking about Western civilization, like there's plenty of problems with Western civilization. It's still worth fighting for. There's plenty of problems in the Western church, in the American church.
Yep.
Not dismissing those problems. However, it's very clear it's still worth fighting for because not only because Jesus said it was and he's going to build it, it's his church. But what I'm saying is there's a lot of people that and even prior to 2020, but even post 2020, but thankfully now there seems to be this uptick of there's something happening spiritually, especially in the younger generations, and God's doing something. I'm so grateful for that. I told somebody else the other day, I don't know if it's a revival or not, but we don't need to sit around and debate what it is. We just need to steward whatever it is.
Yes.
You know? So we're trying to steward that well.
And I want to say this just so we can make this clear, because anytime you're talking about global missions and funding things that are happening across the world, there are people, and I get it, who are going to say, okay, what are we doing in our backyard?
Oh, gosh.
What are we doing in our backyard?
Plenty.
There are things that you see. There are things that our people see. Give a kid a chance. Hope for Christmas. There are things you don't see. You don't see that an elementary school reaches out to some person on the staff and says, we are in a crisis. And we have that budget to be able to say, okay, here you go. There are so many things that happen in downtown Canton. You know, we're not tooting our horn. We're not posting on Facebook everything we do.
No, and we shouldn't.
And so there are a lot of things that are happening locally. And I go back to 2020. Yeah, our front door was closed. That the church wasn't closed.
No, we just weren't gathering in large groups.
Yes.
But we were still meeting and we were still functioning. The church wasn't closed, just the gatherings.
Yeah,
were.
and I don't know how many tens of thousands of pounds of food went out in the summer of 2020.
Yeah, lots of food, lots of things happened. And and that's what's amazing. And we, I mean, thankfully I don't at least I don't hear this this critique. And maybe I don't, so I'm not saying it's not there, but I think the general population in our communities knows that we are a church that is for our communities.
Yes.
Whether it's we partner with our local school systems, like everything, Give a Kid a Chance and Hope for Christmas is done through the school systems, through all the counselors. And we love our school system. We love our superintendent here in Cherokee County and in Jasper or Pickens County. So I think everybody knows, or at least I hope most people know how we seek to serve our community. But yeah, it's just a stewardship. I think I want our church to understand, and I'll do my best to try to communicate these things. It's bigger than what we thought. Like the influence that we have, the opportunity that we have. Like if we don't steward this well, a lot of people are going to suffer. Not only in Pickens County and Cherokee County, but in Lviv, Ukraine, in Europe, in Kenya, in Scotland, in Texas, church planters. I mean, the amount of church planters in Utah, we talked about that. And the funnest thing I get to do is to see those things and then our church be generous to them. It is the funnest thing. And I think that's the part of generosity that doesn't get talked about as much. it is so fun being generous. It is so fun being like that reoccurring thought that I have, as I shared earlier. How did I get here?
Mm-hmm.
I also think like, Lord, how do I get to do this? Like, I don't like, this blows me away, whether like it's planting a church in Utah, planting a church in Texas, planting a church in downtown Atlanta, in Scotland, in Kenya, in Ukraine. Like just all of that is happening through this church. Mm-hmm. And God has given us opportunity and influence that I just want our church to know. That's why, so you said it, the average person that's a part of our church that's just being faithful, that is loving their family, is going to work every day, serving here, wearing a green shirt or a purple shirt or a black shirt or a blue shirt, whatever it is, I want you to know your faithfulness is having an impact all over the world. And I can't overstate that enough. Because if you're not doing that, if you're not being faithful in those little things like you're talking about in the Greek, then we wouldn't have the resources to be able to bless people in the world. I wouldn't be able to go and see what God is doing there and make kingdom investments. And so I'm just so grateful for our church. I'm so grateful for the generosity of our church. And I want you to know there are so many people on this planet that are hearing about Jesus, that are getting fed, that are having their needs met because of you, and you won't know that until you meet them in heaven.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, it is happening.
Which is really hard to comprehend.
Yes.
Somebody coming up to you and saying, you don't know me, but I went to a seminary in Lviv, Ukraine. Because you were generous.
You were generous.
Yeah. That is overwhelming. And that's why we have giver dinners.
Yes.
Because it's a celebration of generosity. Generosity is a step of obedience. We celebrate baptisms. Yes. We celebrated 100 baptisms this past weekend because that's a step of obedience. Yeah. And a public proclamation. And our generosity is a worldwide, global proclamation that the gospel's important.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, and it's not because I'm so smart or I, figured out how to, again, I'm like, but God is just that global. That's the thing that I love. And I love when people in our church get to go on mission trips with us, whether it's to Scotland or Kenya, hopefully one day Ukraine. We can't take a trip there right now because I can't do that.
And just like we haven't taken a trip to Israel because of unrest.
The things going there, but we would love to. But that's why I love when people in our church get to go to other places because they see, we have this phrase of like, oh, it's such a small world. It's not. It's such a big God. The world is not small. It's huge.
It's a long flight.
It's a tough, I'm still recovering. I'm still going to bed at like 6 p.m. and waking up at 5 a.m., which I don't mind the waking up at 5 a.m. That's pretty, well, it's been like 4:30. I don't mind that. It's the not being able to stay up past 7 p.m. that's been tough on my family. But you see, it's not a small world. It is a big world, but it is a big God. Like there's this huge, I like to say a global God. You see the same God we worship is a global God. Like I was at the church plant in Ukraine on Sunday, and probably a lot of people are familiar with Brandon Lake, the worship leader. Yeah. He has written a lot of songs, gotten Dove Awards. He's touring. So we've seen some of his songs. 2 students, I think I think one was from Rev Kids and one is a student, in separate tubs on Sunday. They didn't know each other. They both got saved at a Brandon Lake concert. Really? A week and a half ago. Oh, I didn't know that. Yes. Well, that makes what I'm about to say even better. So Brandon's father, Mac Lake, is a good friend of ours. He actually came here he was one of the first guys I brought in 14 years ago to help us with leadership development stuff. And now Pastor Jesse is working with him in his group called Multiply Group. So Mac's been a friend for a long time, so I have his number. So I'm sitting there in Ukraine on Sunday morning. They meet at noon, so it was like Sunday afternoon. Because it's a very young people's church, like most of them in their early 20s. And they're singing Ukrainian, but I could recognize the tune. So they are singing Gratitude. Oh, my goodness. In Ukrainian. And so I took a video of it and I sent it to Mac, Brandon's dad. And I said, I'm in Ukraine right now and we're singing one of your son's worship songs in Ukraine. And then he texts me back within a few minutes, like in tears. It's like, thank you so much for sending me this. You're the third person. He said, I've gotten a video from someone in Jerusalem, someone in Ukraine, and then somewhere in another country. He said, I've gotten those in the last 2 days from people telling me about his songs. And he was like, that's all I prayed for, for let the world hear these songs. So I wanted to let a dad know that his son's songs were being sang in Ukraine and we were worshiping, and I was thanking him for his son using those gifts. So that's what I mean when you see that. You see, now to hear you say 2 people in our church got saved at his concert, I'll have to tell him that too.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to name drop, I'm really not. But what I'm trying to say is that's when you see how big God is. How amazing is it that Brandon, who just grew up as a local church kid, who God is incredibly gifted musically to write songs. Now his songs are being sung in another country. I'm being blessed by, they're being blessed by. And I was tearing up thinking, oh my gosh, this is how big God is. God is this global God. God can do more through you being faithful than you had no idea about.
I don't know if there is a sentence that describes how God is moving right now, other than in the last 2 years. And if you've been here a little bit, we have a new vision statement, and it's generational movement of gospel multiplication.
Yeah.
Just those words are describing everything that you have talked about today.
Yes.
From the Brandon Lake song to the seminary.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was actually thinking about it in the shower this morning, which is dangerous when I start thinking, where I'm driving or wherever I am. But I was thinking, and not that I want to change the vision statement, but since you mentioned it, and I haven't told this to Lindsay or anybody, and so this is just for our podcast listeners, which means everybody's going to hear it. But I started thinking about we want to be a generational movement of gospel multiplication, but it's but is there a preamble that I need to say of our vision is to be a global generational movement of gospel multiplication?
Yes.
I don't know if we can add global into there.
We'll call the billboard company.
Yeah.
and it's called a snipe.
Yeah.
And
just put it on there.
Global.
And again, I'm not saying we're going to change because the vision's still the same, but thinking about, that's what I'm trying to insert. Generational implies generational, right? Beyond multiple generations. But now it's but it's not just generational, it's global. So again, I don't know if we're going to change it to a global generational movement, because at some point you have to stop adding words to it.
An international, global, generational.
Yeah. But that's why I was maybe a preamble of our vision is to be a global generational movement of gospel. So maybe we just add that, not as a part of the statement. But I say that to say, because it is global now.
Yeah.
It's not just generational, it's global.
And speaking of generational movement of gospel multiplication, we don't have time today to get into 1 Corinthians, which you will be preaching the next part of 1 Corinthians.
Be in verse 6 this weekend.
Chapter 2, starting in verse 6.
Which you did a great job, by the way, through verses 1 through 5.
That was fun.
Great job.
That was fun.
Yeah.
And I loved, I think it was on a car ride that you and I were talking about the verses.
Yeah, back from our pastor's retreat.
And you're in the passenger seat looking up words in Greek. And so that was really cool and very helpful. But how kind of God to let me do those verses with the passion of the late in life believing in Jesus and just wanting everybody to know about it.
Totally.
Where was it going? Generational movement, gospel multiplication. If you missed baptisms, and hopefully we were able to capture this.
We will show a recap video this weekend.
Yeah. We had a son baptize a daughter, then baptize his mom, and then baptize his dad.
Wow.
So grandparents of grandparent age, a son probably mid-40s, and then a daughter. So 3 generations. There were brothers baptizing sisters. There were husbands baptizing wives, then baptizing kids. It was incredible. There was we have a Vietnam veteran who serves and leads our campus safety. And you don't get a chance to hang out with Vietnam vets too often.
No.
And if you ever have an opportunity, just like if you missed opportunities to hang out with somebody that fought in World War II, take the opportunity.
Yeah, hear their story.
Dave has been wanting his daughter to be baptized, and they saw another guy on campus safety get baptized with his daughter, and the daughter of Dave said, "Hey, I'm ready."
Yeah.
That gave me the impetus to go get baptized. So here we have Vietnam vet, 15-year-old daughter or 16-year-old daughter getting baptized.
Yeah.
Just remarkable stuff.
Incredible.
That points to the generational movement of gospel multiplication.
Yeah. And again, and that's why I love, and we will show a recap video of the last 2 baptisms in both campuses. Because again, in the same way you're seeing the effect of the gospel on people's lives, and it's generational, so that's here locally, people getting baptized, internationally, globally. What God is doing here is nothing short of miraculous. And again, we have opportunities in front of us too, to like, we have some very strategic opportunities for us as a church in front of us that we want to steward well. It's just crazy. It's amazing to see what God is doing here and what God's doing all over the world and allowing us to be a part of both of those. It's humbling. And so again, thank you, church, for showing up, for serving, for being generous, because it not only leads to 100 people getting baptized in one weekend, it leads to churches being planted all over the world. It leads to leaders being trained all over the world. And so we're super grateful for that. And it's hard to express speaking of that Brandon Lake song, our gratitude to what God has done in us and what God is doing through us. And so thank you, God, but God, for doing that. And thank you, Revolution.
Yeah, because this stuff doesn't normally happen.
Well, that's what it does in the Bible
yes.
and all over the world. But yeah, it doesn't always happen here. In churches, and so we're so grateful that it is.
Very grateful. All right, write down everything that we said if you want a transcript of today's show. We did not do the names. We did not talk about our staff at the end of the last podcast. So we have, there may be 2 new ones because you've been just in and out, and Matt and I did a podcast. And so our producer, Brian Damero, our video technician is the king, Kian Sadiji, our key grip, Jakub Puszczakowski.
Yes, from Poland.
Our film director, Marcos
Guardiola.
Our head of doctrine and theology is theologian. Our chief evangelist is salvation. Our backsliding prevention officer is lukewarm. Our director of Swedish witnessing is Bjorn again.
We need a Norwegian one.
We do. I'll have one for next time.
All right.
Our expert on Russian eschatology is Pitov Hell.
Yeah.
Our director of holiness is mortification. Our staff counselor is Les Moody. Our giving coordinator is generosity. Perhaps you'll meet her at the giving dinner.
Yeah.
Our nativity coordinator is from France, Bethlehem. She's French. Our co-pastors of plagues are Manny Locust and Lance Boyles. Our sabbatical director is Trip Long. Our missional expert, Sam Aria. Sam Aria. Our resident Trinitarian is Holly Spirit. Our strategist for the final battle is Irma Geddon. Her name's Irma Geddon. Our resident prayer warrior is Neil Down. Our executive director of spiritual warfare is D. Monick. Our head of the new AI initiative is Artie Fischel. Our director of Old Testament covenants, he was knighted. Sir, come size. Strange last name.
Yes.
Our video technician in charge of instant replay is Slow Moses. So when you see the baptism video, when we slow it down and they're coming out of the water, that's
his work.
That's his work, yes. Yeah. Our resident feline expert is Bartholomew, also known as Cat Thaniel. Our director of New Testament baptism, Phil the Tub. filled a tub.
I don't know if I heard that one.
You didn't?
Maybe, but it's just still so new.
Filled the tub.
I like that.
Our curator of the dry bones from Ezekiel is Arthritis. Dry bones. Our head of the arts and crafts department. Have you heard this one?
I don't know.
Yes. Actually defeated the Roman Empire, defeated the Roman army, and there was only enough oil in the lamp for 8 days and 8 nights. But he's now heading up our arts and crafts department. Judah Macrame. Judah Maccabee is the real guy.
Yeah, but what's macrame?
Macrame?
Yeah.
Oh, probably before your time.
Yeah, I have not heard this.
It
one.
was
Yeah.
It was big in the 60s and 70s.
Like hodgepodge?
No, it was like you take yarn and make these designs and you just hang it on the wall.
Oh,
yeah. You're,
okay.
like if you go to Hobby Lobby, you'd probably see some of that artwork still.
Okay,
Macrame.
I did not get that one.
And this one, I don't know if you heard this one. Our wardrobe is because we never have said where our wardrobe is provided by.
Yeah.
Every talk show, that wardrobe provided by.
Yeah.
Wardrobe provided by Saul of Target. Saul of Target. Yep. Yeah, not too many people know that when he was...
that was what his tent making.
Yes.
Yeah, he was...
Yep. Mm-hmm. When he was holding all that cloaks at the stoning of Stephen, he was like, hey, I could sell this. Saul of Target. And of course, as I said in the message, quoting you, and as you have said many times, it's on our walls in the church. Trust God.
And take a nap.
See you next time.
Love you.